As we're reaching the end of the competitive season for League of Legends, we are now getting a better idea of who's going to be at the World Championship. Some of the biggest members of League's history and, from the past and that's being forged in the future are set to make appearance. Some of the biggest names being, obviously we have the unkillable Demon King returning back to the World Championship. Faker the Playmaker. He is back and ready to go from the LCK. But who we knew for officially going into the World Championship is the NA teams versus EU. The rivalry that started since the beginning. NA versus EU. Who is the best? Who's primed to make a good appearance at the World Championship? On the NA side, our representatives are 100 Thieves as the first seed, Team Liquid as our second seed, and Cloud9 as a third seed. And I will not lie, I'm more of a fan of Cloud9 of all the three teams. But why are they important and why do they potentially have a chance to actually show up at the Worlds? Because, admittedly speaking, North America hasn't done the best. We may have had sent our first seed to go 0-6 last time we showed up at Worlds, and we were kind of the laughingstock for a while. But this year kind of is dictating to be a different tone, where NA actually may show up as good as it has in a very, very long time.
USA.
Yes, exactly. USA. Even though most of our players are not from it. But going into it, 100 Thieves has won the NALCS and has been showing to be a very, very dangerous team to go against. With Someday in the top lane, able to take out a lot of pressure that a lot of these teams are dishing out there, and more specifically towards the mid lane and the bot lane themselves. Faker Dage, or most known as Avadage, the mid laner coming from the EU to then come to NA and absolutely stomp the competition, showing this is how a mid laner should play the fucking game. None of this, let's wait for 20 minutes, slowly scale. No, I will fight you to pieces, and if you don't stop me, then I will take the rest of your team with it. This is what Avadage is really focusing on, especially when combined with FBI, one of the most talented AD carries we have in North America, combined with Huhi in support. The mid laner known as the A-Soul one-trick. He was only known to be really deadly with a flying dragon that's coming from outer space, but now as a support, this man is able to roam everywhere, and he's actually proving to be a premier support player. And who can forget about Closer? Closer came around from the Turkish League, comes to North America, one of really highly touted jungler. Kind of had a slow start to begin with. He had a good start. He had a good start. Transitioned to a pretty slow middle. Now he's taking names. One of the cleanest Lee Sins we have in the game. That's just 100 Thieves. Really well-rounded team, really dangerous, and more specifically, doing something that's kind of focusing on the World's patch. We'll get into that in a little bit. But what we know from 100 Thieves is that they're not afraid to fight. In fact, they want to fight you most of the time. And this is something that's really exciting to see on the world stage, because we're not getting the passive bitches we've had in beforehand. Specifically, we're talking about Team Liquid. Team Liquid has had that pass of being super passive. We wait till 20, if you don't kill us before then, we might actually show up to a team fight and do something for once. No, that is a Team Liquid of the past. Now we have a bloodthirsty Team Liquid.
Liquid ain't sipping.
Exactly, it ain't sipping, and the only thing that they're doing is taking freaking names, but not championships, unfortunately. But we're seeing a lot of good things. Alfari's in the top lane. Santorin, maybe doing some good things in the jungle, has been kind of slowing down. Mid lane we have Jensen, the historic choker in most of the high profile tournaments. And obviously, we have in the bot lane, we have Tactical and Core JJ, which Core JJ is considered one of the best. Team Liquid as a roster has had some shaky situations, but the most important fact is that they are deciding to be very, very bloodthirsty. Out of nowhere. This is a really interesting dynamic for NA as well. Kind of throwing it off as well, Cloud9, my team. There is some bias that I have towards there, but Cloud9 has some of the most impressive players, and some of the players with possibly the highest potential out of any of the other teams. Most notably in Perks. Perks is the golden boy from the EU, the $11 million man, who his salary is always touted every single time he's playing the game in Cloud9, showing off, a relatively good playoff performance, but he's going back to Worlds. And his team that he left is not going to be there. So now Perks is going to most likely going to show up. No, it wasn't G2 who was the show up performance. It was Perks, and G2 was lucky to be along for the ride. He's now coming back, and he has a reputation to live for. What that reputation is going to be like, it's now his destiny to decide. As well along going with Fudge as well, who's now returning as an NA member, which when we first seen Fudge at Worlds, he kicked ass, took names. There's a reason why a whole bunch of teams wanted him.
He fudged them up.
He fudged them up all day. And Blabber, yeah, we've seen him kind of be very rocky in the jungle, but hell, when you have two of the people who want to scrap the most and who like to move around the map the most in both Perks, Vulcan, and even Fudge too, you know, he could have a really good Worlds run and no longer be an international laughingstock, but the one who's actually showing off the most. And of course, we have Sven too in the bot lane with Vulcan, like I mentioned before. That pairing only levels up time after time and again, so long as we don't give Sven Ezreal. Please do not give them a passive fucking champion, because we've learned Cloud9, when they decide hit pedal to the metal, they're going 100 miles per hour. They're going team fight after team fight after team fight. Most of the reason why they gotten this far is because they're willing to dish out the blood. They're willing to dish out the hits. NA is showing up in a way that we've never experienced before. We're willing to fight for the very first time. All teams are willing to fight you every step of the way. We've seen this through the Championship Series, and we can potentially see this at Worlds, because we've had the habit of being too scared of our opponents. Hopefully that changes this year. And especially since EU is possibly the most dangerous it's ever been beforehand. Going into the EU side, we have Mad Lions as the first seed. As their second seed, we have Rogue, and third seed being Fnatic. Now, Mad Lions, what can I say about Mad Lions that hasn't been said before? These are bloody bastards, and they're willing to fight every step of the way. Armut being the premier top laner, known as the Wukong One Trick, and is now, hey, if the man only knows 4 champions, he can play those 4 champs to absolute fucking perfection. Their team fighting all across the board, Mad Lions, has been some of the best. Absolute dominance in the EU League, and this is possibly one of the best seasons that we've had, for at least for the top bracket of the LEC. And for Rogue, we know we're talking about people who are more aggressive, willing to team fight. Mad Lions is a personification of team fighting every step of the way, where Rogue is, for lack of the better word, most likely going to choke out of all the teams we're talking about here. They're really passive. There's, for some reason, it looks like the team never likes to interact with each other. It seems like every single time they lose one game, it's, alright, we lost one game, pack it up, put it away, we're done for the day. So hopefully Rogue actually decides to put up a fight, but out of all the 6 people that we're talking about, at least in this segment, they have the higher chance of doing the least, or doing the worst, depending on what their mental's like. But now the most important one, or the most curious one about the entire situation of those 3 teams. Mad Lions may be the new king of the LEC and the freshest blood, but sometimes dynasties are dynasties for a reason, and that is Fnatic. Fnatic has always had a pretty decent showing at Worlds. At the very minimum, they have had pretty respectable showings at Worlds every single time. And now this is a whole new roster. And some people would argue maybe a little too chaotic of a roster. But this is an interesting situation because there's no more Reckless. There's no more franchise players. We now have Ultra Wide Whippo, the man with the most iconic walk in all of League of Legends, now as a jungler, which he's never been before. This is his first split as a jungler, and he's potentially one of the best, if not the best jungler in LEC. And that's a really hard thing to contend against because junglers are normally really prevalent and really well respected in LEC. But not only that, with the combination of Niski playing out of his fucking mind, Fnatic is a team to contend against with. Hylissang, Hylissang is playing his absolutely psychotic playstyle he always does. If we're talking about blood, the man has oceans of it. Because he's never afraid to pull a fight, even if he puts his teams in very bad situations. But this is a really interesting Worlds dynamic because as we're seeing the patches going into it, team fights is the name of the game. Volatility is the highest it's ever been in League of Legends. You win a level 1, you're most likely going to win the game. And the LCS, the North American teams, are willing to dish out. They're willing to fight. And they're willing to sacrifice the entire game on the first 5 minutes if it matters. And we're talking about the LEC here. They kind of perfected that. In a way, North America kind of copied a lot of the mentality that has been present from the LPL and the LEC. And so now it's a chance for NA to show up. Are they copying the homework and changing the answers? Or are they taking it and perfecting it and making it even better? And we're really not going to see that until we get to Worlds. But man, is it going to be an exciting one. Because NA versus EU, yeah, EU's been winning many years over and over and over again. I will not deny it. But this time, we know Worlds is going to get bloody. And I can't wait to see what's going to happen when the dust clouds settle. Who is standing on top between this rivalry? Because it's a rivalry that's old as time and since the foundation of the league. And in this current time with the league, dynasties and legacies are no longer something of importance. We're seeing new kings and new blood now taking the threshold and the old guard starting to disappear bit by bit, retirement by retirement. So maybe this rivalry, this is the year where NA does triumph over EU. And if it doesn't, well, I'm really excited to see how EU shows out anyways.